Hello. You may hear this commotion behind me. All kind of stuff is happening. But welcome to season 4 of the DIY Creative Podcast. Hey, I'm Senator Jaiz. Friends call me Aben. Today we have a very different show to start off the new season. We have Nate Etheridge. Nate is a super fan. He's the kind of person that you want to like what you create, because he is the kind of guy that will drive other people to consume your product. He is the kind of person that will learn about your product. He is the kind of person that will evangelize your product. So this is a little different in the way that we do things around here. I just want you to see the face of a super fan, a true geek, an unabashed geek, a guy that doesn't have guilty pleasures. He just has pleasures. This is Nate Etheridge. This is season 4. Let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of season 4 of the DIY Creative Podcast. If I were a more attentive sort and would do my homework more often, I could tell you exactly what episode number this is. But you've been around. This is the 4th season. You know that's not me. So whatever episode number this is, that's where we're at. Season 4. And we are going to start this season off with something different. We're going to start this off with Mr. Nate Etheridge. And I refer to Nate as a super fan. And what I mean by that is Nate loves what he loves. And everybody that is a creative out there needs some Nates in your back pocket. Now, Nate is a creative. I'm not discounting that. Nate does graphic design. Nate is a musician. But he's on here to let you know how you screw up when you neglect your fans, your super fans. When you don't give attention to the people that like your stuff because they like your stuff. When you're searching for numbers or more popularity or selling your soul, going to the crossroads. Not everybody can be Robert Johnson. But you don't need to be Robert Johnson if you have Nate. Nate will buy your soul, and he will keep it for you and then give it back to you at the end, because he's a super fan. He'll guard it with his life. Nate, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. So do I call you, what do I call you on this show? Senator?
No, everybody knows me. Friends call me Aben.
Okay, Aben, good. That's what I call you. So
yeah, there's a guy named Jamie that listens to this show. He can't call me Aben. Everybody else can call me Aben.
Fair enough.
Friends can call me Aben.
All right, cool. Well, glad to be here. Thanks a lot.
Yes, I'm glad to have you, man. So Nate, not to put you too on the spot here, but hey, what's some of your background?
Some of my background. Well, I am, like you said, I was a graphic artist for 15 years before I did what I do now. And my background before that, it was an art degree. Commercial art, ad design is kind of what I do. But, prior to that, I was just a fanboy, Star Wars, Batman, etc.
Yeah.
I like to think that once you like a thing, you should learn about the thing. So yeah.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into that. Trust me.
All right. Yeah.
So at the beginning of this, I mentioned that you, unlike most people, you don't have guilty pleasures. You just have pleasures. You're that nerd. You're that geek.
Yeah.
You know what? We originally just to let everybody know, we actually did a dry run of this because we started recording without me hitting the recording button. So we get to go back and do do-overs now. And one of those do-overs that I'd like to kind of get into is that you brought it up yourself just now, and it's a great thing to get into, I think, is that you're not only a fan, when you like something, you're the guy that becomes almost a walking encyclopedia, or not almost, in some cases, a walking encyclopedia of that. And I'm going to ask you the most controversial question of the whole interview right off the bat, because this is something that sticks in my gut sometimes. It's like,
okay.
there's the beautiful people in the world, and then there's the rest of us, the geeks,
Yeah.
the nerds. We go about our life. We're super fans. We make our way, right?
Right.
What do you think of the takeover of geek culture by the beautiful people?
Well, we did talk about this a couple of weeks ago,
Yes,
and
we did.
It's a situation where I'm thinking we were talking about the Marvel MCU, the Marvel movies that are all linked up into a giant series, and I'll focus on that if I can, just for a point of conversation. I love those movies. They're a lot of fun. Kind of know what's coming just because I've been a comic book fan, and I managed a comic book store for a long time on weekends. And, the stories those movies tap are adaptations largely of material that's existed decades previously. People who like those movies, good on what the party, but there's a whole lot more depth of knowledge that could be had if you go back to the source material and actually learn who those artists were, who really you love in those movies.
We lost the last 10 seconds of you there.
Okay, sorry.
You froze up.
Where should I start?
You were talking about the going back and mining the media, mining the source material.
Yeah, that's a fair thing to do. They're good stories, and that's why they adapt them. But there were creatives, as you called them, artists and writers and people who did not get Marvel movie salaries, or, well, they didn't get the credit that they might have gotten if they had just written a movie. So I guess what I'm saying is I say, great, if you like those films, I do too, but there's a whole untapped world of creative minds and people and situations of storylines and things that you can learn about that are still out there for you.
Well, I think, there's the whole side of the beautiful people taking over, and it's like, we're geeks but then I think what brought the conversation on between us was right along that line, in that I read an article by a young person who only knows Marvel from the movies.
Yeah.
And he saw Endgame. And he made a comment of how lazy the writing was that they merged Banner and the Hulk into a character.
Right. Yeah.
And we were talking about, like, wow, wasn't there this storyline of Professor Hulk?
Yeah, that was
didn't this
kind of
exist in the world before Endgame, like years ago?
Peter David's stock in trade, that whole idea from about the time Lou Ferrigno went off the air until recently. So yeah, it's not exactly a new story. It goes back close to 40 years now, I would guess.
Star Wars is another one that just sticks right here because, much like you, I was one of those kids in line to see Star Wars before we knew what Star Wars was going to be.
Right, yeah. I had seen the trailer that came out actually months prior to the movie, and so there was a lot of hype and build-up. But I'll give you a personal anecdote. You can cut it out if you need. Growing up, or as a child, I was not allowed to see movies that were not general audience, rated G. Like that, I was in 1977. I was 9 years old in May when that movie came out. And at some point, I got really antsy with my dad. When do I get to see a movie that's not just rated G? Because I had this idea that it was a gear shift and something significant would happen when I saw a movie that was rated PG. And sometime in the winter of 77, Dad goes, I think I've seen something. It's going to be rated PG. And I think I'm going to take you to see it. And it will be, it was Star Wars. In the lobby, nervous and pacing and wringing my hands because it was like in my head, this was going to be a rite of passage. Tonight, I am a man because I will have seen a movie with a rating other than PG. And then it was Star Wars, and I had this idea that you've been keeping this from me. PG movies are this? Like, my God. So anyway, yeah, there was that extra. Not only was it Star Wars, which is good enough, but I saw a rated PG movie, man.
Yeah. I think the thing that got me the most is on the latest trilogy, which a lot of us that have been with Star Wars since the beginning did not like one bit. But the youth of today, youth being anybody under 30, I believe.
Right, yeah.
Anybody under 30. We're saying things online like, Star Wars is ours now, get over it. And I'm like, no, you don't really get it, do you?
Yeah.
When you're 7 years old in 77, and you're waiting in line to see Star Wars, and now you've stuck with it this long, you don't take that from us. You can be a part of it with us, but you don't get to tell us how it goes, because we were expanded universe. We were on the ride. We had expanded universe taken away from us. We had, these are things that we had in our head, and we knew when they were coming back and making the new trilogies, we knew it was going to happen already, but then you took it away. But on your PG story, before we get back to where we were, I just have to say this, because this was my rite of passage, and it was totally accidental, but it was the greatest thing ever, because much like you, I could only go see rated G movies at one time. But it's the best I got you ever was when I went to see Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger.
Same summer.
Rated G. But right in the middle, Jane Seymour and Taryn Power
topless,
butt naked.
Yeah.
G-rated movie. It's like
G-rated.
Whoa! What is this? That
was the exact same summer. I looked it up recently. It's what a great movie.
What a great movie. Had John Wayne's kid as Sinbad.
Reading lines off of cue cards.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? John Wayne's grandson has more charisma with the Mandalorian helmet on than his son had with a speaking role in Sinbad. But all that. It had Harryhausen.
Yeah.
So
lots of Harryhausen. That was him at the end of his career, and some people denigrate that movie for not being as creative or groundbreaking as the earlier work, but he was at the top of his game, and he animated that hairy saber tooth at the end, and there's no chatter in the fur. Like, it's just amazing.
It was awesome. So that was great. And then everything else in the movie, the fact that it made little sense, you could take all that away, because right in the middle, there was Jane Seymour and Taryn Power. In my well under 10-year-old self, that was my introduction to what was going to come later in life. What kids get now just by turning on their computer, actually, they get way more. I still remember, it's like when HBO was scrambled in the house. We didn't have HBO, so back then you'd have the thing where you could sort of see the picture, like if you watched it.
With
I'd be looking
lines
at the picture like, I saw something. Anyway, we know where that goes. So that was my thing. When you're talking about G-rated movies, that was my we got 'em moment.
Yeah.
Because didn't know it was coming. Didn't go see it because of that.
It was pretty spectacular filmmaking there.
That was the first movie I ever begged to go see again because I knew to watch for it. Because it took me by surprise the first time.
I can top you. I sat still and went right through the next screening back to back. I swear that's true. I'm not making that up. I watched it twice in a row in a couple hours.
Did I really just see that?
Yeah.
I gotta check this out.
That was great.
But
Go ahead.
Well, I was having a thought, and this might be too much of a sidebar for you, but I was actually thinking of this the other day, the G rating. You know, it was not for the longest time the pariah that it has become. G rated meant for a general audience. Meaning you might go when you're 7 and your grandparents might enjoy going to see that movie too. So there was, for example, go back and look at the ads. 2001: A Space Odyssey was a G-rated movie. Sometime around 1980, something happened and G became a synonym for just terrible. And I don't know how or exactly when, but I know that
PG-13, then PG became what
that
G was.
That became a little bit later, but yeah, you're right. It was sort of G was terrible and PG was acceptable.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't The Black Hole a G-rated movie?
Yeah, I believe it was, and it may have been one of the films that caused them to reevaluate the system.
Because that had some dark themes in it.
Yeah, kind of senseless themes too. But what I really remember was E.T. By the time E.T. came out, which was 81, I believe, Spielberg cut in a dialogue line where a kid calls another kid penis breath because it was going to be rated G, and that was death. And he had to make it a PG. He had to salvage it from the curse of rated G.
And he did well.
And so that's how they did it. Yes, he did. Good.
Nothing went wrong with E.T. until Atari launched the video game and destroyed their entire company.
Yeah, it's true.
I had that game. I thought there was something wrong with me, but it was the game. It was always the game. I didn't find out till years later. It wasn't me. It really was the game.
Have you seen the documentary?
I have.
In New Mexico. I can't even remember the name of it,
But they actually find the landfill with all the E.T. games in it, the legendary landfill where Atari buried the games.
The amazing thing to me was that legend was it had enough of an element of truth in it that it wasn't like 10 million copies of it, but it was enough that like, wow, this recognizably is a thing that happened and it's a legend. Yeah.
It was no Geraldo opening up the vault of Capone, right?
Yeah, right. It was a real actual thing. They got 10 cases of Atari 2600 crap out of the ground. It was a real thing that actually happened.
There it was.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of took my bait. And I'm going to act like I'm smart and I was trying to bait you, but now I'm baiting you after the fact. Because you just did what I said. We went off on tangents there. Yeah. And your encyclopedic knowledge just started popping out.
Yeah. I'm a sidebar guy, and I know I have watched your show and listened to your casts, and I know that what's important to you in this context is art and artists and the ethics around that stuff, and so I'm trying not to go too far, but
well, we can bring that in a little bit because now I really want to talk about fandom in general, not specific things, and I mean we share a lot. I mean, I can't list out everything, but I know for a fact we share Tesla, Iron Maiden. We share a lot of bands from the 80s. We share a love of a lot of the same movies, a lot of the same properties, a lot of the same comic books. Although you're a DC guy, I'm a Marvel guy. Now that the movies have come out, we're both Marvel movie guys, less DC guys. Want to like them, but
I do. I am on their side. Please stop screwing up movies. It's those DC films. I know they have their fan base, and God bless you, but they're not really for me.
Right. Marvel has shown the world how to do it.
Yeah, they have. It's stick to the source material. I would credit their original creatives a little more upfront than they do. But yeah, they know how to make those movies. Actually, in terms of story rhythm, is action, action, make them laugh, action, action, make them laugh, and you pick your Marvel movie. That really is kind of the rhythm that keeps those things going, beginning to end, for 20-some films now. Yeah.
Well, it keeps it in the realm of the source material, which was comic books, which was
right.
children's graphic literature. DC,
right.
I find, has just embraced the dark so much.
Yeah.
They've taken the comic out of comic book movie.
Right. It's just meditations on personal misery, and I'm not a big proponent of that. The comparison I often make is here's another geek thing. I'm probably the possessor of one of the most comprehensive collections of Dr. Seuss writing, and I don't need those stories to be rewritten for me, or going for the whatever 25 to 40 demographic. Like, they're G-rated, man. Like, anybody can go. I can enjoy them, and grade school kids can enjoy them, and that's okay.
I kind of had that. The first book that I ever read that I actually fell in love with when I was a wee little child was Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh yeah.
I even learned. I mean, people would say, "What's your favorite book?" And I tell them, "I love Where the Wild Things Are. It's a Caldecott Medal winner." People were like,
yes,
what?
That's right.
Nobody knew what the Caldecott Medal was. I didn't even know what it was, but I knew that book had won it because I was such a fan of the book. And then the movie came out, and people were like, "Hey, the movie's coming out." And I'm like, how do you make a movie out of a book that really paper thin? It's a riff on a theme. It's not, I saw the movie. I was unimpressed with it for the most part.
I actually have not seen it. Yeah,
you're not missing anything. One thing is that really kind of broke my heart. Even though I was never able to go through it when I lived in San Francisco, they had the Metreon. And when the Metreon first started, it was a Sony media property. It was like a mall, but made by Sony, right? And one of the really cool things there, it was a really high-tech place. It was really cool when it opened. Of course, now there's a Target in it and all. It's just a retail place now. They had a Discovery Channel store back in the day. They had a Sony store. They had this arcade that was based on it was like a spaceship you could walk through. It was one of the first places that had ultra-modern theaters. I mean, had an IMAX in there. But the top floor was a Where the Wild Things Are adventure. And you could walk through the land of Where the Wild Things Are. Ooh. But I couldn't go because the rule is you had to have a child with you.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, I'm childless, and people frown on you. Hey, kid, come with me.
Right.
They frown on that kind of stuff,
Wow.
But just knowing it was there was cool, but it's all gone now.
Yeah, that sounds great, though. I would have been with you. I'd want to take a kid. I have a nephew who is now 25 years old, and he's got a youngster. I think he's about to be 4, but we have this verbal promise to take him to Sesame Place, the actual Sesame Street replica where you can go and ride rides up in Pennsylvania. And one reason I made that pact with him is because I don't want to go to Sesame Street by myself at 53 years old.
Mommy, what's wrong with that guy? Is he okay?
Yeah, but I want to see it. So, yeah.
Was he in an auto accident? Have some form of trauma?
Yeah.
No, he's just one of the good guys because you don't have to grow up anymore.
Right.
I love that about our life right now. You can maintain, as long as you can adult, you don't have to grow up anymore.
Yeah, it's true.
Used to be you had to grow up and adult. Now, with the way life is, with the internet and everything, you can adult and never have to actually grow up.
Yeah, it's a great world, but it also the phenomenon we were talking about earlier of the beautiful people taking over nerd culture. It's a big part of how it happened.
This is true.
Yeah. So,
Well, it's
Blessings.
almost like we
Welcome
all
to the
have to
club.
go and become really popular now, because since they took over our culture, right? The beautiful people came in. We've got to be the popular kids now, right?
Well, I guess that's how that works. You know, it's
gotta
so
pop our
weird to
collars.
me. It's so weird to me because growing up, this was something I was picked on for. I mean, really kind of, took my lumps for being the guy that everybody wants to ask the trivia questions to nowadays. I play a mean game of Jeopardy, but that's kind of what it's gotten me.
Yeah. Well, growing up where I grew up, man, it's like I grew up just outside of New Orleans enough to be rural enough that being a kid that was into punk made life a little dangerous for me at times. Because, I wasn't country, I wasn't pop. And here's the crazy thing. I don't dislike any music per se. I have a mantra, and that's there's no such thing as bad art. It's only art you don't like, right?
Right, yes.
So, I mean, I would listen to Howard Jones, and I would listen to Gary Newman, and I would listen to Jean-Michel Jarre right alongside the Dead Kennedys and the Circle Jerks. And at the same time, I'd listen to Whitesnake and Iron Maiden, and, it's like, but having that stigma of liking punk would offend people to the point where where I'm at with this, Yeah,
like, yeah. I mean, there's
no danger to being a geek or being an outsider anymore.
Do you have, or are you familiar with Social Distortion live at the Roxy? Mike Ness tells a story very much like you just did, but in a lot more graphic terms.
I want to check that out because Social Distortion is one of my favorites, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's right there in between cuts. He starts talking about what it meant to have blue hair in 1978. It was just asking for trouble, like real physical trouble.
That's actually
authorities.
Exactly my experience, because I remember it was the day we got our senior class. It was the last day it was the last week of our junior year of high school, and they gave us our rings, and of course you go around and get people to turn your rings and all, and that day I'm like, I'm going to make my mohawk blue, because our school colors were blue and gray. So I had my mohawk was just bright blue. I'm going in, and one of the teachers pulled me off to the side and says, "That's against the dress code. I could have you kicked out of school today, and you would be." She said all kind of crazy crap to me.
Wow.
And you couldn't smash her.
Yeah.
You kind of just had to take it. But I mean, there was visceral hate coming out of her at me because I dared to, on a day of celebration at school, I wore blue. My mohawk was blue.
Right. Just like your school colors.
Yeah, just like the school colors. I'm like, blue stone on my ring, junior, but about to become a senior, blue hair, It's like, she gave me the riot act, man.
That stinks. I had some of the same thing going on when I was a long-haired, pierced ear, heavy metal kid. You just get the stink eye.
I got a story, and I tell this rarely. It doesn't have so much to do with fandom, but it was 94. I had just got out. No, it was 93. I had just got out the Air Force. I had served 4 years during Desert Storm. So I served my country during a war.
Yeah, thanks.
And I got out, and I had the misfortune of, while I was in the Air Force, doing something in the Air Force that I had no interest whatsoever of doing outside the Air Force. I was in HVAC, and that just wasn't me. That wasn't me.
Right.
And I didn't really know HVAC that well. Since we were in a wartime situation, we had two jobs. We had what we did on our day-to-day basis, which was I was part of the refrigeration shop. Then we had the part that we were trained for if we were to deploy. In the prime beef squadron, we were civil engineering. We were prime beef. And my job in that was rapid runway repair. And it turned out I was really, really good at rapid runway repair, which meant going out after, of course, a bombing or something, and you patch up the runway so that planes can take off and or land.
Right.
Well, I was so good at it that I was able to volunteer to train it every chance I got. I did that. So I never actually learned refrigeration in the 4 years I was in there.
Wow.
When I say that, people are like, "Oh, I guess you're going to tell me you were a secret agent." No, 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 no. I was
Yeah.
just really good at hauling big, heavy slabs of steel and slapping them on the ground and interlocking them, and I could train other people how to do it really quick. And so I did that a lot. And but okay, so I got out the Air Force. It was 93. And so I didn't have a direction. 1 year from that day, I was in Germany, and my life was back on track. I went to Germany and I worked at a ski and golf resort. I was doing the sowing my oats in Europe thing, right?
Yeah.
But, okay, so it's 93. I just got out. I had trouble finding a job. It's not it wasn't Vietnam level hatred of servicemen, but it still wasn't the thing where they tell you get out and everybody's going to respect you because you served your country. No, nobody gave a crap back then, right? So I took the first job that I got offered until something better came along, and it was a job at Baskin-Robbins. So I'm 24 years old, just got out the Air Force, and I was going to go and I was going to sling ice cream, and I was like, hey, that's how Henry Rollins got his start.
Yeah, I was Rollins.
Let's do it. So I went, she hired me. She didn't seem all that happy to hire me, but she hired me. So I was supposed to go and pick up my uniform the next day, because that's still back in the day, just like in Stranger Things, where they would emasculate you by putting you in uniforms.
Yeah.
So I had to go and trade in my really cool battle uniform for a Baskin-Robbins uniform.
A striped shirt.
Yes. So I showed up to pick it up, and this is what I'm doing. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it well. And I got there, and she sat me down and says, I have to talk to you. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
And she's like, I know I hired you, but I don't think I can give, this was her voice, I don't think I can give you the job. Why? By the way, this was angry Aben years, so you didn't want to piss me off back then.
Right, yeah.
I wasn't mellow Aben like I am now. But there was nothing went down that day. I was just very angry. She says, I don't think that our customers will be able to handle your tattoos.
Oh,
now, we're in a
crap.
day and age where one of the most popular artists in the world has crap all over his face. A lot of them. Lil Wayne, I can't think of the guy's name. Post Malone, all over. Doctors have tattoos on their neck. 16-year-olds have full sleeves, everything.
Right.
These were the only two visible tattoos that I had at the time. I have my one right here, and I have another one that we don't speak of on the show.
No.
It's on the head of my penis, people.
No.
I am not joking. You can ask Faith.
Oof.
You can ask
Wow.
Faith. She'll tell you. It's a bat. There's a whole story behind that. Maybe we'll get into it one day. But these were the only two that were visible. So these days, full sleeves and all that. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You gave me the job. This is slinging ice cream. She's like, I don't think that they'll be able to handle your tattoos. And I'm like,
handle it?
Lady, I just got out the Air Force. I've been serving this country in a war for the last 3.5 years. And she's like, no, this is a family establishment, and I don't think you can work here. And that was the last thing she said to me, and I walked out. And the poor girl working behind the counter who had said hi to me the day before, she says, how's it going? Poor girl doesn't know what's going on. I'm like, just leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah.
I'm walking out, and so that when we're talking about our time, it's different now. Things are different now.
It's very different. It's true.
The beautiful people are now geeks. You can be a lawyer, a doctor, a fireman, anything, and have all kind of tattoos. Back then, these two tattoos right there cost me a job at Baskin-Robbins.
Good Lord. I got all the way through the 80s, through the 90s, right through to today, and don't have a drop of ink on me. Zero. I've got some I'm considering.
You've got some ink on your soul, though.
Yeah, that's true.
This is true. Now, this is a Nate story, and I don't know if Nate will want me to cut this out or not, but I don't think so, because Nate doesn't have guilty pleasures. Yeah. He just has pleasures. Nate, one of the things that Nate does with his cadre of close compadres is they go play mini golf tournaments.
Yeah.
And they dress they dress in ways that would make, what was his name? Payne Stewart? Is that, was that his name?
I'm not sure who you're going for here.
Well, the golfer that would always wear the knee-high pants with the
right.
Yeah, he would always do the nines. And Nate always has his hat and the I'm not sure what they're called, but the just under the knee pants with the socks pulled up, and
yeah, Argyles. So what we did, that was a hobby that developed with. I've got two friends who we all go way, way, way back, and we're good road trip buddies. That's a rarity. If you get somebody you travel on the road with, well, hang on to them. So we traveled the road. We'll come up with places to go. And I told them, like, I love mini golf. Turns out they loved mini golf. I'm like, let's go to Myrtle Beach. There's a golf course every 35 feet. Let's just go and see how much we can get in a weekend, how many of these we can do. And it snowballed. Somebody wanted to dress like the Three Stooges or the Little Rascals in their golf, episodes. And we just hit Goodwills and found Argyle that clashed and put it on. And yeah, that's how we go and play only mini golf. No interest or love for actual real golf. We want gorillas. We want astronauts and volcanoes. Nope. We want scenery. We don't want actual golf. But if you want, I don't know if you can do that, can do it or are interested in doing it in this medium, Aben, but I could send you some pictures when you're editing this up.
That'd be great. I think people would like to see your get up because it's spectacular.
Yeah. I'm glad to do it. We've done it 3 or 4 times. We would have done it this fall actually, but COVID, and
I think something happened this past year. I'm not sure what it was.
Some crazy thing.
I'm sorry. What was that? No,
don't do that.
Kidding. I actually had a frog in my throat just now. I just used it for graphic effect,
Yeah. Do you become really paranoid though when you got to clear your throat and stuff anymore? Because I do. It really.
What gets me is I suffer from GERD, which for those of you out there doesn't know, it's systemic acid reflux.
Yeah.
And if I have a bad case overnight, then my throat's kind of tore up the next day, which will lead to me coughing and kind of, I'm a lot of big mucusy. And I will actually make sure that I'm nowhere in public when that happens, just because people look at you like,
it feels like death when it happens. I have it too. I didn't know we share that in common, but
I went to the hospital once thought I having a heart attack.
Yeah.
It got into my lungs and I thought I was having a heart attack. And wow, that was an expensive false alarm.
Yeah, it happens to me.
I can see why people don't go in there actually having heart attacks, because that cost me so much to have the false alarm. I may be having a heart attack and be like, I'm going to just wait it out.
No, don't ever do that. never do that. That's a terrible thing. Sorry to hear it.
No, well, it is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, that will keep me from going out in public, just because I'm paranoid when I get a little mucusy or when my throat's a little tore up from a night of GERD. I'm like, because people can get mean, and people can get and
it's scary times.
You can't judge right now.
No,
this isn't the witch trials. This isn't Salem. Right. This is serious stuff happening. I think the numbers was 7,500 yesterday in the state.
Something like that. It's a little higher, actually.
That's outrageous. But yeah. So let's get back into fandom now. True.
Yes.
Fandom. So you have some great stories. I don't know if we're gonna have time to get into them, but drunk Tesla story. Always a good one.
Yeah.
But you have interacted with the people that you are fans of. So let me ask you this, super fan Nate, take the helm here.
That's your designation. I wouldn't put that on myself.
No. It's just like a nickname. Okay. You got to go with what the person gives you. Yeah.
I'll take it. It'll.
Is there something that a band or any media can do that turns you off? as a person that goes out there and will talk these things up and be encyclopedic and actually convert other people to fans, is there something that a musician or a band or a filmmaker can do that'll turn you off of their properties?
Oh, wow. You might have to pause on me here while I think of this. I mean, surely yes. The answer would be yes. You can cross a line or cause me to walk away.
Well, has it ever happened?
Has it happened? I'll give you an example of somebody who I think is really talented and who I just really have this personal dislike for. And I don't know the guy. What am I doing? But the filmmaker William Friedkin, who made The French Connection and The Exorcist and Live and Die in L.A.
He had a pork pie hat on now.
Right. Yes. Okay. Well, let's talk about that. That car chase in The French Connection. It's just spectacular. It's one of the best ever filmed. Well, it turns out he did that with no permits and no warning to anybody who could cordon off a street. He just put a camera on the front of a car and said, drive whatever they were going, 60, 90 miles an hour. And so when you see near misses and stuff, those aren't stunt cars. Those are people. Yeah. And I just, it's a great movie. It's a great movie, but I'm going, this is irresponsible beyond belief. And that's a big turnoff that he did that. I guess we are getting onto something. Once I have, I guess, stories of safety of, actual human beings, it's not actually worth it, and to be in a movie. Now, the other side of the coin is, of course, Viggo Mortensen broke a toe on camera while in Lord of the Rings. He kicks, I think it was a helmet, and his toe snapped, and his reaction was just, and it wasn't planned. And he apparently went to Peter Jackson and went, well, that's the good take. Like, tell me I didn't break my toe for nothing. But to have the director just go, hey, man, drive into oncoming traffic and we'll hope for the best. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of some of what that guy does. No.
Yeah, well, that's a good example. It's kind of funny because, you think about, okay, we grew up in a time where there was a such thing as a rock star.
Yeah.
These days, everybody knows everything about everybody because it's on the internet, and people
Right.
are almost too humanized. There's no mystery. There's no Tinseltown and actors. There's no
Right.
Hotel California, which we all know the Led Zeppelin stories and all that, that all happened in the Hollywood Hilton. Yeah. Those things, those mystiques don't exist anymore. It's almost like the fans are too into, it's like they are just too into the life of the stars. But when we grew up, there was a mystique. People will not understand this in this day and age, but when we were growing up, we actually didn't know what Ace, Peter, Paul, and Gene looked like.
Yeah,
they didn't wear the makeup 24 hours a day, but they had a pact with all the magazines, Kerrang and all of them. You do not put out pictures of Kiss without their makeup. We didn't know what Kiss looked like until 1983 or 84 when they showed up on MTV for the launch of Lick It Up.
I remember seeing that live and thinking, wow, Ace Frehley looks nothing like I thought he would. And it was Vinnie Vincent.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that. There you go. Nowadays, you would know.
He's a little effeminate guy, isn't he?
You would know from just daily Google News that Ace had left the band, but I didn't have any. Wow, that makeup just really changed him into a different person.
Yeah, but the media was always pulling the wool over our eyes. We only knew what came out in the magazines.
Yeah,
only MTV started to change that, But MTV even held back a little bit. But when we were really kids, so rock stars were a thing. And so
just to interject, Milli Vanilli was an MTV thing. That would not have happened without their complicity.
Well, you know what? Milli Vanilli, people are going to not get this, but I feel so bad for them because in that genre of music, there are so many people that are out there fronting what is other musicians' work.
Absolutely.
They got thrown under the bus because...
As if they did it.
Right.
Yeah. They were just the pretty boys on the poster. They didn't do anything. They were the lucky guys.
Yeah. And so Milli Vanilli was it was basically a corporation.
Yeah.
Let's put it out there. Milli Vanilli was a corporation. So why did they get
the Monkeys
taken
weren't?
Away? The Grammys were won by the songs.
Right.
Yes. It's like, and those two guys were the perfect front people for that organization.
It was just not known how common it was becoming for piped in music to be on stage when you pay for a live performance too. I mean,
speaking of Kiss, Paul can't sing anymore. He lost his ability to sing. And this, not the tour they're on now. Of course, maybe the tour they're on now but the last tour they got busted several times. Paul would walk away from the microphone while his vocals were still going.
Yeah.
He and you'd listen to Eddie Trunk, who is the biggest Kiss fan in the world, even though Gene Simmons hates him with a passion.
I thought it was Paul that had the problem. I thought Paul had the problem with.
Paul had the problem at first, but you know how Gene has to get involved in everything.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that Paul was the brains of the act, just Gene Simmons was the talker of the act. And if it wasn't for Paul, they wouldn't have even made it through the 80s because Gene was more interested in his acting, in the merchandising, and all that stuff. Paul was the only reason Kiss even had a career in the 80s, as minimized as it was.
Yeah. Well, you and your listeners can actually go on YouTube and find Paul reading chapters of Paul's book and kind of telling his perspective on that. It's even if you're not a huge Kiss fan, you just like music stories. It's worth listening to. It's pretty cool.
I have to go check that out.
Yeah. I mean, it's the huge chunks of the book being read by the author. Yeah, wow. Go for it.
Yeah, cool stuff, man. So. Again, we're getting into the deep dive here, man. So, as I was saying, like you talked about, we talked about movies there, but for us, rock stars could get away with almost anything because that was the mystique.
Right.
So something that a filmmaker would do, it's like, I don't like that guy, but then there's the Led Zeppelin story.
Right.
I have not turned my back on Jimmy yet.
Yeah. This reminds me of a conversation I was having with some friends I think maybe yesterday. We were talking about Bon Scott because I love that guy. He was, he turned dirty limericks into real art.
He's got big balls.
The big balls. But not just that. The guy... He reveled in all these rock star tropes you're talking about, but he made himself the butt of all his own jokes. He didn't get the girl. He got his ass kicked in the bar. Dying and going to hell is kind of a not particularly threatening amusement. And then, it's tragic that he had to prove that he was the real deal by choking to death in his own vomit in a parked car.
Death by misadventure.
Yes,
that's how it is on the death certificate.
It's like he's the real deal. He's the Daffy Duck of rock and roll, man. I loved Bon Scott, and AC/DC is still going on the rep that he built. I
still love AC/DC, and I love Back in Black on, but my favorite AC/DC songs or Bon Scott.
Yeah, same here. I mean,
it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. Come on, that has bagpipes in it, man.
Yeah, and he was playing them.
That is, man, you don't get more rock and roll than that. And oh my God, which video? Okay, now this is good. I'm gonna kick my own ass after the show here. There's a video where they're in a church, and I can't remember the song, and it's killing me. But when he jumps off the altar and lands, he breaks his leg on camera, and they left it in.
God. Is this the one where he's actually wearing priest robes?
Well, at the point where he jumps, he's in his shirt unbuttoned with his jeans and stuff, but I think at one point he does. And it's killing me because AC/DC is really a big band in my life. It drives my wife nuts because we like a lot of the same music, but my love of AC/DC and ZZ Top drives her nuts, I think.
Right.
You know, because you don't get cooler than Reverend Billy.
Right.
Reverend Willie G, man. He's the coolest man on the planet. Listen to him talk for a few minutes and you're just like, I could hang with that guy.
Right.
And AC/DC, they, like you said, it wasn't just Bon Scott. They've said it many a times. To be a band in Australia, to play the bar circuit and work your way up like they did, especially being Scots.
Yeah.
Not actually Australian. They were Scots in Australia. Man, you could get physically hurt with the stuff that they talk about in the song "Long Way to the Top." If you want to rock and roll, getting robbed, they lived that, man. They were beaten up. They were robbed. They were, because, you'd get hurt.
Apparently.
So they were tough, man. As small as they were tiny little people.
Bitty guys.
They were tiny little people, but,
Apparently Whole Lotta Rosie is also a real thing.
Yeah. Those songs do read like stories, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. I was going somewhere and I don't remember where it was. So anyway, go ahead.
Oh, well. So now we kind of went down the things that people could do to have you, let's say, not be a fan any longer. But what are some of the things that bands have done that have actually turned you into a fan?
Well, I might go on a tear here, but as a kid, I guess my first real pop musical love would have been the Beatles. And, who's not? But I know there are people who are not. But
quite a lot. There are still some people out there that claim that the Beatles were nothing but 3-chord rock. I'm like, have you listened to anything
crazy.
after Rubber Soul?
Yeah. I'm one of those later half 2/3 of their career kind of fans. Like I really think Rubber Soul was the flashpoint where, wow, it just goes and goes and goes after that. But the thing about Beatles fandom is that it's a finite subject.
Right.
And so because it's arguable, but let's say 8 years and, dozen albums and a stack of singles and, that's it. So you can, for me, as being the kind of person that you're talking about, the fan, you really have to drill down into the story if you want to follow that rabbit hole, because there's only so much music you can get. It's kind of finite. I think it's 17 hours of Beatles music, and it's a really comprehensive collection. So that said, as a kid, I fell for that band. And then it led to me ignorantly going, well, that's what I like, and there's no point in trying anything else. And, it was a long time. It was probably 13 or 14. A cousin came and visited from Georgia. And here, let me get up. He had this on a cassette. And I wore this specifically because it was a turning point. It was a milestone. Not just of going, wow, what a kick-ass album. And to this day, it's just great. But I began to understand that I liked production end of things. I liked the bombast of, just in my music. So this did lead to Iron Maiden eventually, right. and Queensryche and a lot of bands that I love. It kind of opened things out for me. But something else I love about this is this artwork, and so I was one of those kids that when, I'd buy music for a cool album cover, just to see what it's about. And,
well, that's an art form that's lost these days, man. Remember
there's
Foghat's
no room
album
for it.
covers?
Yeah.
Fool for the City, dude fishing in a manhole.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the art of the albums was,
Yeah, it was great, and they folded out, and so it was a 18 by 24 or something, or 12 by 24 sleeve.
You're talking about
Yeah.
Boston, man, and talking about production techniques. A lot of people may not know or may know that Tom Schultz started at Polaroid, I believe it was.
Yeah,
He was an engineer.
that's right.
And he
He
started
was
developing...
He was one of the creators of the Instamatic camera. He was on the design team for that.
He left that, and he was designing audio equipment while he was making the album. The album took forever to make. Boston wasn't a band. Boston was Tom Schultz, Sib Haitian, right?
The recording is mostly a collaboration between Tom on every instrument except the drums.
And that's
There's a guy named Jim Mazdia is the guy.
Oh, so it wasn't Haitian at first.
Right. It's not him. It's not Sib on the album. It's his photo on the back, and he was the live guy. Yeah, the hair, the big sphere of afro. Did you know he died on stage 3 years ago?
Yeah.
He was actually doing his thing on stage and
if you're gonna go, right?
Yeah, rock and roll. But then the linchpin to it for me is Brad Delp being
rest
able
in peace,
to
Brad.
rest
Suicide.
in peace, making choirs of himself by working with Tom in the studio.
It actually bit him in the butt because they'd go and do the live shows and they really couldn't reproduce it.
Just couldn't do it. And I've seen him live, I don't know, half a dozen times. It was like it was like that seeing a PG movie thing for me to go and see Boston live in 1986. I made a T-shirt that said Tom Schultz invented the wheel. And that's what I wore to my first Boston show. It was just
so it was basically those three guys, and they put the band together for the album artwork, like you said, and for the tours. But Tom Schultz invented the Rockman.
Right.
Now, guitars can be so pure about their tone and all, but what a lot of people don't want to get out is that so many people, Satriani loves the Rockman. He's unabashedly loving of it. But like the album that a lot of people love from Def Leppard, I personally think Pyromania was their best, but Hysteria, after all the drama of Hysteria, Rick Allen loses his arm. I mean, they went through hell. By the time they got to recording, it was Mutt Lange, right?
Yep.
He wanted everything so simple. The guitars on that album, and if you go back and listen to the album, the guitars on that album were guitar to Rockman to board.
Right. And that's how the Boston albums from after Don't Look Back On have been done.
Yeah. A little headphone amp that could.
Yeah,
but so many
I've
people
got one on my desk in the other room.
Yeah, they'll talk about their Marshall stacks and this, that, and the other. And yeah, you do that on stage, but you can hear the albums where they were made with the Rockman.
Yeah, well, you remember Van Halen's stage production when Roth was with them, and it was just banks and banks of Marshalls. Only one of those things was on. They might not have even had speaker horns in them. They were, that would have killed people to actually turn that many.
Eddie Van
on.
Halen had a quote one time, and he was asked about Pete Townsend's hearing loss.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I like to feel my hair move when I stand in front of my amp too, but only the hair on my arms. I only have the bottom cabinet mic'd.
Right. Yeah.
Because
exactly.
Pete would stand in front
Oh man, I saw the Who, what the Who themselves called the Who on Ice tour, when Pete had some kind of area that he could stand in that was, had less sound in it. He was trying to salvage what was left of his ears. It's terrible. And, I don't hear great in my 50s, and I know that was from too much loud music in my 20s. I regret that. Don't do it, kids.
Yeah. It's
earplugs.
These days, it's like, what you gonna do though? You can't get
nothing
it back.
Now. It's too late. It was stupid. Coming home from shows and thinking how cool it is that I couldn't hear the whole next day. My ears.
It was loud back then, man. It's loud
Yeah,
now, but now you know to put earplugs in. You know, hey, you can still hear, you can still feel it.
Yeah,
but you're not destroying your hearing anymore.
Yeah,
you know, but what you gonna do, man? That's rock and roll back in the day. You know,
it was really a bad idea then.
Yeah, and you know, like today, you go and technology has gotten to the point now, and they're backing tracks. There's all kind of things to make the music sound as perfect as possible. What I love is when people, supposed fans, try to talk about electronic music or this, that, and the other, or whatever they don't listen to. And they're like, I like my music to be played by musicians who spend years learning their instrument and they play their instruments. I'm like, you know, go back to when I was young, go to a Rolling Stones concert and they didn't even barely know the songs.
Yeah.
But it was great.
I was at that Steel Wheels show. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, after
I worked security at Steel Wheels.
Huh?
I did. I worked security backstage at Steel Wheels over at Carter Finley Stadium in Raleigh. Yeah.
You know, it's like anything after 76, the harmonies that Keith Richards had to sing were totally messed up because Keith Richards' voice was like this now. That voice that he had that meshed so well with Jagger back in the day, it was blown. And
so you're a sound guy. I'm interrupting your point. I'm sorry.
No. That was just it. I'm just like, back in the day, people had this idea that they'd go to concerts and hear the albums. But if you weren't at a Rush concert who always doggedly tried to reproduce their album sound, you weren't getting the albums. You were getting the live experience, and the live experience didn't sound like the albums.
Right. So just quick parenthetical, Rush is probably the band I've seen live second most, just by the way. But what is it in Keith's harmonies that how does that sound so good? You know, Wild Horses. It's just a croak that you can barely hear. It's off key. Why does that sound so beautiful you could cry?
Because it's raw.
Is that it?
Because here's something that people don't get about Keith Richards, and Keith Richards is a god to me. He feels the music.
Yeah.
He does. More than Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger was a preening peacock, and I love him for it. But Keith Richards, if you ever listen to him speak about music, sometimes he comes off as gruff, sometimes he comes off as dismissive. He doesn't like certain types of music, but listen to the words he chooses.
Yeah.
He feels it. And you can get that through the Rolling Stones, like you said. It wasn't in key. People today are so used to things being perfect. We grew up on not perfect. We grew up, tape was expensive. There was no such thing as putting a piece in the middle of a song. You had to re-record if you wanted extra. There's space for the solo. You couldn't just solo, when you wanted. You had to go with that space because tape was expensive, and you couldn't do the kind of cuts you can with a digital situation,
well, there was practically no such thing as a home studio, so studio time was prohibitively expensive. You can't. Yeah.
Okay. On my phone here, I have probably 1 million times on my phone. I'm not even talking about my computer, the rest of my studio. I'm talking about my phone. I have probably 1 million times more power of recording on that than the Beatles had at Sgt. Pepper. So you had to be creative. You had to be inventive. This is the same thing with Pet Sounds, because you can argue till the day is over which one was the one that influenced the other, or which one was the one that changed music forever. But it was Pet Sounds and it was Sgt. Pepper's. And we all know that the Beatles were inspired by Pet Sounds and Brian Wilson, but then you can say that the Beatles took things in a much more musical, much more pleasant direction. So we're not, I'm not going to get into Pet Sounds or Sgt. Pepper, but they had.
Did you know that Pepper was 4 tracks? Yeah, like you're talking about the power they had. That was a 4-track.
So you'd record, then you had to bounce down. So you had to make sure that those were mixed like you wanted them, because when you bounced down, you couldn't unmix them. You didn't have an undo button. It went to tape.
Yeah. And
then you'd record on the 3 tracks again and bounce down. And actually, it was 2 4 tracks. They were synced. They had 2 4-tracks synced. But I mean, I have Aria Pro. Well, not on here. I have it on my iPad. It's not for the iPhone. I have something outrageous like 96 tracks on that thing.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
And there are people out there that'll use 96 of those tracks. And then they'll get perfect. And everything is quantized now. Everything is on the beat. And if it's not, you can move it around in the DAW. You can chop it and put it on the beat, and you can make everything perfect. Some of the best songs in history. Bonham never played a song from start to finish at the same tempo. It went through 7, 8 tempo changes, but not at different sections. Just he'd speed up and slow down, and Page was locked into him.
Yeah,
they were just locked in, man. And that there's a feel to that. There's a realness to that. That's why you could probably see them live, and they weren't the same. There was a feel to music back in the day.
Yeah,
that's lost now, because even rock bands and all, you go in and everything is produced. And a big thing that happens now in a lot of hard rock and a lot of rock is the drummer will go in and do his thing, then they'll come in and put drum samples over his drums.
Right. Yeah, that's a ZZ Top thing now. That's an '80s Top.
Well,
deal.
ZZ Top, they never put samples over Beard's drums, but they did put drum machines in on the albums. Yeah. But what I'm talking about now is like, what they'll do is they'll have a band, and the drummers naturally are not going to hit every hit the same. They're going to be slightly off the bar here and there. So they'll come in and put drum samples in.
Right.
And they'll literally go in hit by hit and put a drum sample in and put it right on the beat, right on the line, right on the quantize. It's quantized.
And it's cold. It's cold.
It's cold
when you do that.
Cold.
Yeah.
And then you get auto-tune. I'm not anti-auto-tune. I'm anti-using auto-tune in the way it's used. I'm like, you've got this studio tool that you can do these amazing things with, and you just use it in the most pedestrian way possible. My biggest guitar hero was Frank Zappa. And Zappa said that anything that has ever been created deserves to be played with.
Right.
But he also didn't mean that it needed to be used the way somebody said it needed to be used.
Do you have any connection or care about the band Badlands in the 90s? Ring any bells?
I know of the band.
Okay. It was just the kind of music you're talking about. It was like a 70s band that showed up in the 90s. Jake E. Lee, who was Ozzy's guitar player after
very
Randy Rhoads
outspoken
died.
fellow there.
Yes, sir. And I'm just a huge fan. I got to meet him 5 or 6 years ago when he did a comeback, and I cried in front of the guy. And I told him, I said, Jake, we've never met, but I've missed you a lot. And I got weepy.
Super fan. See what I'm talking about? Super fan.
Yeah, I guess I'll take it there. It was a great moment, but
your fandom has had you in contact with your heroes more than anybody else that I know.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, you make your plan and choose your adventure one at a time, and then just start watching the stories come together and augment your own life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, I got something I want to show you.
Yeah.
And get some wisdom from you.
Okay.
You ready?
You may be barking up the wrong tree for wisdom.
No, I don't think so. I'm talking to the right guy. So when I was in my 20s, you called me a musician a while ago, and that's not quite true. I never had a band or anything like that. But when I was 19, was my Christmas present. Brand new out of the box. It has no brand on the headstock. It's quite clearly a Telecaster copy, and it's very much loved and used and used and used. I was hardly ever without this thing in my 20s unless I was at work. I played, and you can get a look at how all that wear on the neck is mine. It's been worked on and refurbished many times. The irony is that because it's got no name, its guts and stuff are replaced with real Fender parts. So it's kind of a Telecaster Frankenstein thing going on. It's been played to the point that it needs a fret job, so it needs some work and stuff. But speaking as a creative, I haven't played this baby, or any other guitar for that matter, in a very long time. And when I pick one up, I'm distressed at how much I've lost, and it brings me down, and I don't go for it and get back what I've lost. And it was something I thought I wanted to bring to you for some words. I've got a girlfriend. She always says she would like me to. I've got an Ovation Elite. Yeah. Hey, Linda.
Hey,
I got an Ovation Elite.
Hey, Linda.
I've got an Ovation Elite in the bedroom. It's a beautiful instrument. And it's quiet. And I'm disheartened at my own rustiness. I'm not sitting down and getting it back. Talk to me.
Okay. Well, first off, there's nobody that you ever need to compare yourself to. And I've learned that. When I was younger, I wish I would have known that, because there's only one Nate. There's only one Aben. And you can never compare yourself to somebody else, because you always live in misery. Because there's always going to be somebody better or whatever. So your ability is your ability. But more to that point, okay, we can two routes on this. I'm a punk. Some of the bands I love the most couldn't play their instruments to save their life.
Absolutely.
So there's that. What you create is your creation. But I don't know that I ever told you why I got into making electronic music there for the longest time.
I'm not sure you have, but we've talked about it a bit. Well, please go ahead. I know that it was kind of a new thing that you just went for, and that's why I'm talking to you about this.
The thing is I've been playing guitar since I was 13. Okay, so what happened was, I don't know if you can, well, teeny time.
Nice. Oh yeah, did you do that? Yeah.
So I was in school band. And I played saxophone. And playing saxophone is a very generous term.
Yeah.
I had brain crap that I didn't know I had when I was young. I didn't know I had it until I was an adult.
Okay.
Back when we were kids, you didn't get diagnosed with things like ADD and with dyslexia and all. People just thought you were stupid.
Right. Or weird.
Yeah. I couldn't read music to save my life. So I flunked out of band so hard. I didn't last a year. But I had this saxophone that I couldn't play, and then I had no interest in playing. I think it's because of that experience. To this day, rock songs with saxophones in it make me want to hurt myself.
Right. Yes.
I like bagpipes in my rock music.
Right.
It kills me because T-Rex has a sax solo in Bang a Gong, and T-Rex is one of my favorite bands of all time. Yeah. But okay, so fast forward, I'm 13. I got this saxophone that I'm not playing, and I hatched this plan. I'm going to go down to Hoffman's Music in Thibodaux, Louisiana, and I'm going to trade that saxophone in. And my mom's like, because no guitar's worth the same, whatever she said. I don't know. But I wasn't budging. So she brought me down there. I got there and they're like, we don't do that crap. Like, you do today.
Yeah.
They gave me that guitar for that for that saxophone. It's a Feinen. It's a Japanese guitar made at the Matsumoto factory. And it was imported by a guy named Feinen in Oklahoma for 3 years in the late 70s.
Okay.
That's the guitar I got. I even have the history on it. Still have that guitar, still play that guitar. That was my start in playing guitar. So I was playing punk rock on acoustic guitar. If I had known it was viable, I would have been the Violent Femmes before them.
Right.
But I didn't realize it was viable at the time, right?
Yeah.
Next thing I did, I got a job at a chicken joint, and I saved up, and I got a Yamaha electric and a crate amplifier on payments. It was like a $150 guitar. Trust me, $150 guitars back in the 80s are not like $150 guitars now.
Right. You can get a guitar for that.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the stuff coming out of Indonesia is amazing. But back in the day when you got a $150 guitar, you got a $150 guitar. But I loved that guitar. And I started, you know, playing. Punk rock was a lot easier on that thing because it made noise.
Yeah.
So that's my guitar. You know, I've been playing guitar all my life. But then I started getting nerve damage in this hand. You know, I have a seizure disorder.
Okay.
That's what got me out the Air Force. And through the years, it's morphed from what it was when I was in the Air Force, but I started to have nerve damage. And all of this stuff, the neurological problems were getting me down. But I couldn't do the things on guitar that I used to be able to do. So I got really disheartened. I got into podcasting in about 2005. I was a professional podcaster. I got signed to Pod Show and Me, which became Mevio. I worked for Adam Curry. For those of us our age, know who Adam Curry is. Yeah. He had founded Pod Show, so I was one of his podcasters. And that lasted till about 2010. And that was how I took care of doing something musical, because my show was all about breaking indie bands. That was my contribution to music since I was having trouble playing. I couldn't play what I used to play. Well, come to about 2012, I was like, I'm sick of not making music anymore. I've got all this recording equipment from doing the podcast. I'm like, I got Ableton. I pirated a whole bunch of stuff. Didn't make anything worth a crap out when I was pirating stuff. The day that I dropped money on Ableton was the day I started making music, because the second you put your money where your mouth is, you learn how to do things. Right. When you're pirating things, you always want to get that next thing that's going to make it all work, but it never works because you just get the next thing. So I put my money down finally on Ableton, got Ableton. I put my first album out in 2014. To my credit, I still leave it out there. It's still available. You can still listen to it on Spotify.
You're not a fan?
You know, for what it was good, but I was trying to do something I wasn't into.
Okay.
That was right at the height of the DJs being stars and the producer DJ, you know, and, everybody was. I'm not a dance music producer. Let's just put it that way.
Huh. Get out of town.
Yeah. Go figure, right? So anyway, fast forward, I'm making electronic music. I have 7 albums out now, probably close to 25 singles. But somewhere along the line, I realized I'd started doing Wim Hof method breathing. I'd started doing things that started to make my neurological problems come under control. And not medication things, physical things.
Okay.
I started to realize this hand was coming back to life. It was like a horror movie.
Yeah, the Tingler.
I still can't do what I did when I was a kid, but I do different, and what I do now, it's different. But I got the ability to play back. But it was hard at first, because it really is hard when you used to be able to do something. You're trying to do it. Dave Mustaine went through this when he injured his arm. Yeah. And he had to teach himself how to play again. Peter Frampton did it after a car accident where they told him he would never be able to straighten his arm fully again. And he got back on the horse, and they had to learn a different way to do the things that they did before. And that's kind of what I do. But I started to get the feeling back. I started to get the playing back. And once I started realizing it didn't matter if I could do the things I used to do, it was just fun playing again. Yeah. I started getting better and better. As long as I was trying to do the things I used to do and was frustrated that I couldn't do the things I used to do, I wasn't going anywhere. But the second I realized it was just fun to have the guitar in my hand on a daily basis instead of once every 6 months like it used to, like it had gotten.
It felt good sitting here with it just propped up a minute ago. Yeah.
And then you get to the point where, okay, if I do this and it doesn't sound great, I mean, what is who's going to come and kick my ass for it? Right. And then once you get to that point where you take that stress off, that pressure off yourself, you start to realize, wait, it's coming back.
Yeah.
So you just have to find the enjoyment again. And the enjoyment isn't in what you used to be able to do. The enjoyment is that it's just fun having 6 strings under your, unless you're talking about my 8 string. Then it's fun having 8 strings. Talk about having to learn something. 8 strings.
Yeah, I've been watching you on Instagram playing. Yeah, well, that's something.
You know what's funny is I do a lot of experimental stuff. I do a lot of stuff that's out there. And so every now and then I actually have to do a video showing me actually playing because people start to think I can't play because I'm doing all this crazy crap with all my stuff and all. So every now and then I have to drop a video that shows. I just dropped one today.
Okay.
On Instagram where I'm not saying this out loud. Look, I can play. People start thinking, oh, he's doing all this crazy shit with all his stuff because, well, he must not know what he's doing, I actually got slammed by a video by a dude that has a blog 2 days ago. Slammed me, put it on Twitter. I was the crappiest musician he's ever heard and stuff and all. And Faith wants to kill him, but I'm like, I got extra views on YouTube off of that. I got 2 more subscribers off of that. Nothing bothers me anymore, and that's the key because Nikki Sixx had this quote. I have another podcast, but I don't talk about it a lot with the people at our job at the museum and stuff because it doesn't really jive with what the vibe of the museum is. But it's spiritual audio journeys. I'm a very spiritual person, not religious, not church, just spiritual. I believe that we have a soul. You know what I mean? I believe that we're capable of greater things. And I talked about this in my last episode, actually. Nikki Sixx actually had this quote. Your opinion of me is none of my business.
That's
a lot of people say what you think. I don't care what you think of me, but just saying that you don't care what people think of you means you care what they think of you.
Yeah.
But if you really get to the point of your opinion of me is none of my business, that's a very empowering thing.
Right.
Because that guy didn't ruin my life by trashing me on a website. I had just got a piece of software. I'm like, I'm trying this. I plugged it in, didn't even learn how to use it. I was just doing something crazy. And he slammed me on it. One of my proudest things is after Moogfest 2016, I say this is my Led Zeppelin moment because people don't realize when Led Zeppelin was an actual band, Rolling Stone used to trash their albums.
Yeah, they
trashed their albums.
Excoriated by that mag.
So at Moogfest 2016, that was my first year doing Moogfest. I did Moogfest 2016 and 2017. Rolling Stone trashed me in the magazine.
No way.
Yes, trashed me in the magazine. And I'm like, bam. That's my Led Zeppelin moment. That was one of the things when I realized they really do mean there's no such thing as bad publicity. Yeah. Rolling Stone trashed me. And you know what? I woke up the next day. I was still breathing. I was still making music. I was still doing my thing.
How many subscribers did that get you, though?
Not many, because back then I wasn't as savvy as I was now. I didn't know how to capitalize on it. They didn't trash me by name. They trashed me in the name of the museum.
Oh, man. God.
Yes, because that was the year I went and I had my 10-minute music station where I was bringing people up, teaching them how to multi-track music in 10 minutes. But I also brought the mammal music from the museum.
Right.
So they trashed mammal music.
Yeah.
And so I got trashed in the name of the museum, but mammal music was me. So I got trashed in Rolling Stone. But it taught me. I still woke up the next day. I still ate food, still made music, still went on. My friends still talked to me. It didn't change anything. I remember Roy was running around the music, apoplectic. He was like, we got trashed in Rolling Stone. And I'm like,
yeah, I'm surprised.
And?
Yeah, I'm surprised.
You didn't get trashed in Rolling Stone. They said the museum. That was all me. I got trashed in Rolling Stone. That was my baby.
Oh, man.
Wow. So that would be what I'm saying. Just find the pleasure again, dude. And it doesn't matter what comes out. Just find the pleasure.
That's really good advice. That's something I will take to heart because I do like the feeling of playing well, and I don't like the way it sounds now. And I'm having trouble jumping the hurdle. It brings up this negative stuff. Another
thing that I can tell you is is don't try to do the things you used to do. Just go back to the basics.
That was great.
Be Tom Petty for a little while.
Right.
Remember, Tom Petty did all right for only knowing 3 chords.
Right. It's true.
You know, Tom Petty once said that if you put more than 3 chords in a song, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
So you don't have to be a virtuoso right out the bat. One of my heroes, right out of T-Rex, man, Mark Bolan.
Mark, yeah.
There's sometimes you listen to Mark Bolan songs and you listen. Does he actually know how to play the guitar?
Right.
But he's considered a guitar hero by so many people. But you listen to him, especially if you listen to him live, you're like, does he really know how to play that guitar?
Right. Yeah.
And I take that to heart, you know. I like I said, I love Billy Gibbons. People think of Billy Gibbons as one of the top blues rock guitarists of all time. You know why? Because he is.
Yeah.
But then go listen to them in concert. There's all kind of concerts you can go listen to. Billy Gibbons doesn't play the stuff on the album. He makes mistakes.
Right.
He has bum notes. Listen to Angus live on stage. And these guys were not virtuosos. They were blues-based guitarists.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Angus is sloppy.
Page.
Oh, yeah. He's the king of sloppy playing.
What was somebody said one time? Did Led Zeppelin actually ever play the songs on their album?
Right. So I got to ask, I'm interjecting here. The documentary, the ZZ Top documentary Sam Dunn did, it's on Netflix, right?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. Okay. Just curious, because I love that filmmaker, by the way. Yeah. If you want to come up with a good cross section of interests, if I see Sam Dunn has a credit in a movie, I'm just going there.
I'm about to rent the Zappa documentary, the one that was made by Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
What's his name?
I've seen that it's out, but I haven't gone for the purchase.
I love those
yet.
things. I love the ones that are made well, like the ZZ Top one, and evidently the Zappa one. Like, he's the only person they would give access to because he was going to make the documentary that should be made, rather than somebody's behind the music you see on TV and stuff like that. But I think it's Alex Winter. I want to say that. But...
I didn't know it was him. Well, there you go.
Yeah, the dude from Bill and Ted and from Lost Boys and all.
Yeah. I know who he is. I just didn't realize that he was behind the movie.
Yeah. But I mean, as much as I love to think that I know so much about the bands that I love, I knew that Frank Beard was the messed up guy in the band, the lovable messed up guy in the band. I did not realize how bad he was at one point.
Yeah, they had to stop being a band for a few years to get him.
But to their credit,
through it,
they just stopped and then they came right back, and they now have the world record for being the longest band with a consistent lineup. Yeah.
Well, the thing that I loved about that story, and I'd heard it before, but it just kind of confirmed that the beards that Billy and Dusty grew were just like they both went on hiatus
Dusty
separately.
Didn't see
Billy went to Europe, and they came back and they looked like that, and their managers went, "This means something. This is a look."
And Beard doesn't have one.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Anyway. Man, rock and roll stories. I could go for days on rock and roll stories, man.
Yeah.
You don't get them anymore because you know everything in the minutia as it happens now with the musicians. There's no mistake.
It's dating me to say it, but there's just not rock music anymore. Like the Foo Fighters are kind of a band in the sense that we're talking about, but there's not a lot of bands now.
Dave Grohl kind of is the torchbearer.
Yeah.
Look this up. I think it was 2016 and maybe 2015. It was the year that AC/DC opened up the Grammys. It was the first time they got nominated for a Grammy. And I want to say it may have been for Black Ice, but it may have also... I think
Black Ice was right.
Yeah. So Brian Johnson's in his jeans, his T-shirt. They're old as shit. Malcolm's not with them. Stevie Young is with them, on stage. I believe Malcolm may have been there. It may have been right before Malcolm stopped, but Stevie may have been there.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Angus is there in his schoolboy pants, old as hell. And they got out there and they played one of the new songs off the album. Then they finished with Highway to Hell, and they cruised through the audience. And the audience, half of them are like, especially the young people, they're like, "What is this?" I'm like, "That's what you call 200 million albums sold, youngsters."
Right
but
there.
You see Dave Grohl like in the third row, and Grohl is like, "Ah!"
Yeah.
And they keep panning. They get to Ed Sheeran, and he's like. It's so funny. You have to look it up. It's
okay.
It's on
Yeah,
YouTube.
I will.
But it's funny because man, Grohl's there like, ah! But they get to Sheeran, and Sheeran's like,
that's cool.
you know, like yeah. But the general consensus, you're looking at everybody out there, and they're like, what are we seeing,
Right,
dude? That's rock and roll.
It is, and it was almost certainly actually live, which is really weird at a award show.
And
too.
you can talk about Brian Johnson and Bon Scott's vocal style all you want, but when they do it live, they nail it.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember if I said it when we were talking about him earlier. I mean, I love Brian for keeping it going all this time, but it's not the AC/DC that I'll listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
there's no bagpipes.
Yeah. Back in Black's in the canon. I'll give him that. But, you know, I'm listening to those first 6 albums, man.
Well, Back in Black had some Bon Scott DNA on it because that turnaround from his death to the album. That was fast, dude.
I mean, I've heard them deny it a million times, and they didn't have anything of Bonds to start with. They've said it, and I shouldn't doubt them. But if You Shook Me All Night Long is not a Bon Scott trope, like Brian, if you got that in you, dude, give us some more of that. Like,
yeah,
that's really an amazing Bon Scott homage there. I could just still imagine them with pulling that up in the studio, a studio recording of him singing it.
Yeah, and you know, AC/DC and ZZ Top, people that talk about the guitar gods, you know, like I love Van Halen, man. I love Van Halen. But then you go from Van Halen to the Shredders, and people start to think that speed and complexity is what the guitar gods. Yeah. People don't realize, man, Angus Young's solos are closer to David Gilmour than they are to Shredders.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
but he's still a guitar god, man.
Well, you know, yes, he is. I was peeking on that Shredder stuff when it was actually cool.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Don't get me wrong. Except for Yngwie, man. Sometimes the ego's too big for me.
Yeah, I gotcha.
You released the fucking Fury.
Right. Well, I used to have a supervisor at work who would listen to what I was listening to. And this was a Vietnam vet from, you know, he served in the early 70s. And here he's listening to this, you know, me listening to Steve Vai's newest release or what have you, and kind of shaking his head. And you know, back then when I'm in my early 20s, it's like, who can play faster than who and who's faster than that? And he said to me quite sensibly, was Michelangelo the fastest sculptor?
Yeah.
and it really gave me pause and made me, maybe I should.
Well, if you put Badio behind it, yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah. You know, I remember that there was it may have been Guitar World. It was one of the guitar magazines. And do you remember Chris Impellitteri?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the lesser, I mean, at the time he was known, but you know, you know, he's still out there touring and stuff.
Shrapnel Records was a thing in my music library back when. Yeah.
Somebody asked him, and he made mention of. They asked him about his speed and all, and he said something really clunky. And this is not verbatim, but he's like, "Well, of course, if I can play fast, I can play slow." Because that was when the backlash was starting against the Shredders and things.
Right.
And I remember even then thinking, Gilmour.
Yeah,
you can't play.
I was gonna say Gilmour. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm like, nah, that's probably not the best way to answer. The way you answered that wasn't the best way to answer it.
Yeah,
you know, you could have qualified that a lot better. You know, because first off, don't apologize for what you do because you're an artist, and second off, don't don't shit on those that are better at you at something.
Right.
You know, just because you play fast, just because you slow down, you're not going to be Gilmore.
Yeah.
There's a feel,
true.
there's a touch. You're not going to be Clapton.
Exactly
you're not
going to
be one of those guys,
Right.
But so hey,
Robert
man,
Cray.
I'm gonna throw this out there.
Yeah.
Let's do this again at the start of season 5.
Okay.
But we're going to coordinate it so that a song that you and I do together, where you play guitar on it, we'll release it on that podcast.
Oh my God! All right. Okay.
Deal?
Yeah, you're gonna.
Depending on how long this season goes and how far we get with this quickly, maybe we'll finish this season with it.
Okay. Well, I'll take you that challenge on. You're going to have to teach me a lot because
I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to loop Eric in on this.
Okay.
We're gonna do a podcast.
Like
me, you, and Eric, and me and you will record the music. Maybe even Eric, because he's a musician too. And we'll coerce Eric into doing the cover art for it.
Oh, that's awesome! Yeah,
and you can work with him on that because you're a graphics guy too. We'll all kind of disciplinary. We'll cross disciplines there.
Okay, it's a challenge live on the internet. Cool.
So, dude, man, we've been gone, dude.
Yeah.
Because Superfan. I know there's more you wanted to get to, and we couldn't, so we have to do another episode to actually get to the stuff you wanted to get to. And I don't even know exactly what I was gonna pitch into this, but I'm happy to give it another try. Fan geeks going, man. You're in dangerous territory, man.
Yeah, it's true. This is like this actually is Saturday night at my house, so
this is Saturday night almost live, man.
Right.
I had to say the almost because I'm afraid of Lorne Michaels and his lawyers.
Yeah, please. He's a litigious guy.
One day we'll have to tell the story of me having to go head to head with Disney, knowing that I'm up against Disney lawyers, and this was a museum thing.
Wow. Yeah,
it's a story I can actually tell too. It's not. There's nothing I can't disclose. We'll get into that. I'll tell you this one day at the museum. But yeah, okay. I got pitted against Disney lawyers at the museum once.
Wow.
Lawyers scare me.
That's some scary lawyers.
Lawyers,
too.
Black widows, and tornadoes.
Yeah. Right.
Buried alive. Those are the things that scare me.
Need Eric Knisley to draw you that. A chimer of lawyers, Black widows, and tornadoes.
Yeah. Be like a classic album cover.
That's true. Well, maybe that's what we're asking for this song.
It'll be like the dude on Aqualung, but a lawyer.
Right. Yeah.
With a tornado coming out his butt.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. All right, man. Nate, it's been great, dude.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you asking me, and I can actually sit down and play.
Yeah, and this was really cool. Starting things off on a different foot for the 4th season, and now we have a challenge.
Okay, yeah,
I like how my hand.
I'm looking forward to it.
I love that. I love that. I love that. This is right out of Marvel Comics, right there.
Early '60s Jack Kirby coming at us right here. Yeah, cool.
Action pose.
You need a shield in that hand to make it work. Oh yeah, there we go.
It's not a Costa. It's a shield. Call me Furhand. Woo! The things you find in a studio.
Yeah, this is cool. I've had a good time, and I appreciate you asking me. And
and we'll do part 2 with Eric.
Okay,
I will get Eric.
Spread the word.
I will get Eric on here.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to watch that guy work. Anyway, so.
Well, Nate Etheridge, you don't like the term, or you don't want to use the term, but I will. Superfan.
I don't self-apply,
out there, DIY creatives. That is what I love. This. I have to keep doing it now. That is what you want in your life, in your career. It's a superfan. Build them.
Thanks so much.
Always,
David.
It's like a plant. Water your superfans. Don't leave them out. They're not succulents. Water them like they are a water-needing plant.
I'm a fragile man.
That's scientific, by the way. A water-needing plant, not a succulent. Like, oh, this is why I'm a musician.
Oh, man. Well, yeah. I appreciate this so much. Thank you, Aben. And,
you bet, man. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
You bet. Cheers, man.
Ditto.